The problem is not a lack of motivation. It's something much more dangerous in your mind. Have you ever found yourself full of ambition, with big plans in your head, but at the end of the day you realize that almost nothing has come out of the paper? That strange feeling of knowing exactly what to do, but still falling into procrastination, is not a lack of ability. It's something much deeper linked to your psychology and your mindset. The conflict between discipline and immediate comfort creates a silent internal game, where motivation appears strong, but disappears at the first difficulty. And in this back and forth, old habits take over, while consistency and focus are always for tomorrow. The most curious thing is that this does not happen due to a lack of desire to change, but due to patterns of self-sabotage that repeat themselves without you realizing it. The mind seeks pleasure quickly, avoids effort, and transforms small daily choices into a cycle of procrastination that is difficult to break. But there's a point where it all starts to make sense when you understand how behavioral psychology influences your actions, and you discover that change doesn't start with motivation. It starts with decision. This is the basis of what you will understand from now on. There is a constant internal conflict between what you want to achieve and what you feel like doing at the moment. On one side is ambition, the desire for growth, the search for discipline and consistency. On the other, immediate comfort, procrastination disguised as rest, and the escape from action. And it is precisely in this shock that your mentality begins to be shaped, without you even realizing it. This clash is not rare. In fact, it is more common than it seems in the psychology of human behavior. You know what you need to do, but motivation disappears when the task requires real effort and focus. The mind tries to justify the pause, the postponement, and self-sabotage comes in as a friendly counselor. But this momentary comfort takes a heavy toll on your discipline and habits. The most curious thing is that this internal conflict does not mean a lack of capacity, but rather a lack of alignment between action and mindset. You want change, but you are still stuck in old patterns of procrastination and perfectionism. And while this duel continues, consistency is being postponed, as if there was always a more favorable tomorrow. But this tomorrow never arrives the way we imagine. And that makes room for the next point. Procrastination rarely starts as a big problem, it appears disguised as small daily choices. You postpone a task today, then tomorrow, and when you realize it, you have already created an automatic pattern of running away from action. The mind begins to normalize this behavior, and discipline is replaced by intelligent excuses. And so, without realizing it, you enter a cycle where consistency becomes the exception and not the rule. The most dangerous thing about this cycle is that it reinforces the very idea that you're not ready yet. You expect more motivation, more focus, more energy, but in practice it only fuels procrastination. The psychology behind it shows that the brain learns through reinforcement, and each postponement becomes an emotional reward. It's like training your mind to avoid effort, creating silent self-sabotage in everyday life. Over time, this pattern begins to affect your habits, your productivity, and even your mindset about yourself. You start to see yourself as someone who starts and doesn't finish, which weakens your action even more. And the curious thing is that the more you try to compensate with guilt and pressure, the more the cycle gets stronger. But there is a point where this pattern begins to be questioned internally. And this leads us to the next topic. Many people believe that motivation is the main fuel to change their lives, but this is a very common illusion. The truth is that motivation comes and goes, it is not constant or reliable when we talk about discipline and consistency. You even feel that energy peak, read something inspiring and think now it goes, but soon you go back to procrastination. And it is precisely here that psychology shows how the mind depends more on habits than on emotional states. The problem with relying on motivation is that you transfer control of your action to something external and unstable. On good days, you act. On bad days, you stop, and that destroys any attempt at real change. The mindset gets stuck in this emotional cycle, where focus disappears whenever the energy drops. And little by little, self-sabotage disguises itself as unwillingness, when in fact it's a lack of system. Those who really build results understand that action comes before motivation, not the other way around. It's like reading books like Atomic Habits by James Clear and realizing that the secret is in repetition, not in the feeling of the moment. Consistency is born when you decide to act even if you don't feel like it, training the brain not to negotiate with excuses. And when this idea starts to make sense, an inevitable question arises about how the brain really works in this process. The human brain is wired to seek immediate pleasure and avoid any kind of pain or effort. This explains why procrastination seems so seductive the moment you need to act. Watching something fast, scrolling your phone, or putting off tasks generates a feeling of instant relief. But this easy reward comes at a high cost in your discipline and consistency. In psychology, this mechanism is called the search for immediate gratification, and it directly influences your habits. Whenever you choose the most comfortable path, your brain registers it as a correct decision. Over time, the difficult action begins to feel even heavier, reinforcing self-sabotage. And so, the cycle of avoiding effort becomes more and more automatic in your mindset. The important point here is to understand that pain and growth go together, even if it's not comfortable. Consistent action requires you to tolerate small daily discomforts in order to build something bigger in the future. It's like training a muscle. At first it hurts, but then the body adapts and progress appears. And when you start to realize this, you enter even deeper territory. Unconscious self-sabotage. Unconscious self-sabotage happens when you start avoiding important actions without even realizing the real reason. On the surface, it seems like laziness or lack of time, but in psychology it goes much deeper. Often, the fear of failure or even being judged makes you choose not to act. And so, procrastination becomes a safe way to not face real risks. The curious thing is that the brain tries to protect you, even if it harms you in the long run. It associates action with emotional discomfort, and therefore pushes you into easier and more predictable habits. That's when the mindset begins to be shaped by limiting beliefs and old patterns of behavior. And without realizing it, you reinforce an identity of someone who thinks a lot and performs little. This process does not happen overnight, it accumulates in small daily postponements. You stop acting not out of incapacity, but out of a silent construction of fear and insecurity. Consistency is replaced by justifications that seem logical, but hide self-sabotage. And when this is mixed with another internal factor, everything becomes even more intense. Perfectionism. Perfectionism seems like a positive thing at first glance, almost like a search for excellence and high standards. But in practice, it often works as an elegant way to avoid action. You wait for the ideal moment, the perfect idea, the flawless plan. And in the meantime, nothing gets off the ground. And so, procrastination disguises itself as whim, while consistency is being postponed. In psychology, perfectionism is closely linked to fear of judgment and emotional self-sabotage. If you don't start, you don't run the risk of making mistakes, and the brain interprets that as security. But that security takes a heavy toll on your discipline, because it prevents any kind of real progress. And little by little, the mindset gets stuck in patterns of endless waiting for perfect conditions. The problem is that real life doesn't work at the level of absolute control we imagine. The greatest results come from imperfect action, not endless preparation that never ends. Books like The Power of Habit show how consistency beats perfectionism in the long run. And when you start to realize this, an inevitable effect emerges. Guilt and frustration start to appear. Guilt appears when you realize that you could have acted, but chose to postpone it one more time. It starts light, almost silent, but over time it erodes your motivation and your mental energy. Frustration comes in soon after, when you compare what you do with what you know you could be doing. And in this emotional state, procrastination is strengthened even more within your habits. In psychology, this negative emotional cycle creates a very dangerous feedback effect. You feel bad for not acting, and to relieve this feeling, you end up avoiding action even more. It's as if the mind tries to escape emotional pain through distractions and automatic behaviors. But this weakens your discipline and feeds self-sabotage continuously. The problem is that the more you judge yourself, the harder it becomes to break this pattern of behavior. The mindset enters a state of constant pressure, where every mistake seems like proof of inability. And this makes you forget something essential: consistency is not born of guilt, but of repeated practice. And it is precisely here that an important turning point arises about what discipline really means. A lot of people think that discipline is something you're born with or not, almost like a hidden talent. But in practice, psychology shows that discipline is built little by little, through repetition and consistency. It's not about feeling like it every day, but about deciding to act even when motivation doesn't appear. And this is where the mindset really starts to change, when action becomes a priority. Discipline is born when you stop negotiating with procrastination and start respecting your own commitments. At first, this seems uncomfortable, because the brain is still used to quick rewards. But over time, habits reorganize themselves and consistency begins to replace emotional instability. And little by little, you realize that you don't need to be okay to act, you just need to act. The most interesting thing is that discipline doesn't eliminate the will, it just teaches you not to depend on it. It's like building a psychological muscle that gets stronger every time you choose your environment. Your environment can push you toward action or procrastination. Constant distractions weaken your focus without you realizing it. Simple organization already changes your daily discipline a lot. Psychology shows that external triggers shape habits. Cell phone nearby, clutter, and notifications destroy consistency. A clean environment facilitates action almost automatically. Systems are stronger than motivation. Fixed schedules and simple rules reduce self-sabotage. And this leads directly to overconsumption of information. Action instead of escape. Books like The Art of Making It Happen by David Allen show how simple systems help in this process. And when this foundation begins to take hold, something even more powerful emerges: the impact of starting small. Many people get stuck because they want to change everything at once. But the psychology of habits shows that it is the small that sustains the big. Starting simple reduces resistance and nips procrastination in the bud. When you take small steps, the brain doesn't go into escape mode. Reading 2 pages, training for 10 minutes, starting something already breaks the inertia. This strengthens your consistency without depending on motivation. Over time, the little one becomes automatic and builds identity. You stop trying to change and start being someone who acts. And this makes room for the environment to start influencing you even more. Today it is easy to learn a lot and do little. You consume content and feel progress, but you don't execute. This feeds a false sense of evolution. Learning is comfortable, acting generates discomfort. That is why the brain prefers videos, books, and courses without application. Procrastination disguises itself as productive study. Real change happens in execution, not consumption. Little action is worth more than a lot of knowledge without practice. And that leads to the most important turn: acting without being ready. Waiting for the perfect moment is just sophisticated procrastination. Change begins when you act unwillingly. Psychology shows that action comes before motivation. It doesn't have to be perfect, it needs to be constant. Mistakes are part of it, stopping is what keeps the problem going. Every simple action strengthens your discipline. The focus is no longer on feeling and becomes doing. When you act, even imperfect, everything begins to change. And transformation happens in movement, not in waiting. In the end, the problem is not a lack of capacity, but patterns of procrastination, self-sabotage, and poorly constructed habits. Psychology shows that real change comes from consistency, not from big, isolated decisions. Discipline is not a gift, it is a daily construction made with small, repeated actions. Now you think, how many times have you already known what to do, but chose to postpone? What if, instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you started today, simply and imperfectly? Transformation does not happen in intention, but in the action you repeat. If this content helped you reflect, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss the next videos.